Illustrative of this, a member of the QRF had observed several suspicious persons in the area of the AGR building, one of whom ended up being the shooter. This information was relayed to uniformed patrol officers assigned to post along the perimeter and was discussed with the snipers posted inside the AGR building. A Beaver County sniper in the AGR building was able to take a photograph of the suspicious male while he sat near the AGR building, and again later saw him using a rangefinder pointing towards the stage. And this information was promptly reported to the Pennsylvania State Police in the Secret Service Command Center, the Butler County Sheriff's Office, and the Butler Township Police Department. Had these officers not picked up on this suspicious behavior, we likely would not have known anything was wrong until shots were fired. Prior to those shots being fired, an operator from Butler ESU had exited the red barn behind the stage and was monitoring the AGR area due to the suspicious person reports. When shots rang out, he was able to quickly identify where the shots were coming from. He observed the shooter, he shouldered his rifle, he acquired his target, and he fired one round at the shooter, which caused the shooter to recoil and briefly fall out of sight. He did this less than 6 seconds after shots began, using his short barrel M4 platform rifle chambered in .556 with an EOTech weapon sight at a distance of approximately 110 yards. He remained on target, prepared to engage with additional rounds, and as the shooter slowly came back into sight, a Secret Service counter sniper fired a round striking the shooter, ending the active threat. No other rounds were fired by the shooter after he was engaged by the Butler ESU operator. Since July 13th, we have cooperated with multiple investigations, and our members have been interviewed by the Pennsylvania State Police, the FBI, the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, the Secret Service Mission Assurance Investigators, the Homeland Security Independent Review Panel, Senator Grassley's office, and of course, this House task force. We have done so without subpoena, and I am here today without being subpoenaed. Butler County ESU has nothing to hide, and we will continue to cooperate, as I believe the American people deserve the truth. The events that occurred at the Butler rally are nothing short of a tragedy. Evil will always be a threat, and we must continually review our own actions, adjust our operations, and constantly strive to achieve perfection, though we will never achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander Lance. I appreciate it. And I know how heartfelt this has been for you and how gut-wrenching it has been for you, because we talked right after this. That's the purpose of today's hearing. Local law enforcement has gone through way too much. So we're going to get to the bottom of it. The work you did today was exceptional. Thank you. I'm now going to recognize Patrolman Blasco for his 5-minute opening remarks.
Good morning, members of Congress and of the task force. My name is Drew Blasco. I'm a patrol officer with Butler Township Police Department and assistant team leader of the sniper unit with Butler County Emergency Service Unit, as well as a veteran of the U.S. Army. Please let me begin by stating the place where the deadly events of July 13th unfolded is my home. I was born and raised in Butler Township, Pennsylvania, and I've regularly attended the annual farm show on those very grounds since I was a child. The Butler Township community is sacred to me and to the members of the police community with whom I serve. Many of our families and friends work in Butler Township, and our police force works very hard day in and day out to ensure their safety and to maintain the peace and safety of all who come into the township. The events that ultimately played out were horrific and tragic. A man lost his life, his family lost a husband and a father. People's lives were changed forever. I had the unique perspective of wearing two hats for this rally. As an ESU member and assistant team leader of the sniper unit, I took part in some of the planning meetings, which included interaction with the Secret Service. On the day of the event, I worked as a Butler Township officer, assisting with traffic control to ensure that the roads and intersections were clear for the arrival and departure of the motorcade. I would like you all to know that I, my fellow township officers, and ESU team members are committed to doing all that we can to help prevent similar tragedies from taking place in the future. We have voluntarily participated in numerous interviews with state and federal investigators, including those of this task force. We have done so to be transparent and to do what we can to help make political rallies and public events safer. And most importantly, to prevent the lives from being shattered whenever evil men are determined to pursue evil deeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blasco. Now recognize Lieutenant Harold for his 5-minute opening remarks. Lieutenant Harold.
Chairman Kelly, Ranking Member Crow, and members of the House Task Force. I am Lieutenant John D. Harold of the Pennsylvania State Police, and I proudly entered the State Police Academy in 2005. And I have been a supervisor since 2013. I was the officer in charge of our personnel at the Butler Farm Show site on July 13th rally for former President Donald J. Trump. The officer in charge has overall supervisory responsibility for the PSP assets assigned to the detail, and I perform those duties, including visiting each PSP post to ensure the assignments were clear and they had adequate resources. I also took part in planning meetings for the rally for former President Trump with Secret Service and local law enforcement, as well as preparing PSP's operation plan for the Butler Farm Show site. I appreciate the opportunity to join you today to discuss the event as it pertains to the state police. The state police is a full-service police department composed of 4,562 sworn members, 1,616 civilian employees providing various law enforcement services to communities and local, county, regional, state, and federal partners. The state police operates independently from our local partners and works together with full and part-time local enforcement agencies, but we do not have administrative or operational oversight over local law enforcement agencies or county sheriff's office. We have always and will continue to work with our local enforcement partners at local and federal level to protect public safety. Secret Service is the lead agency at events involving its protectees, and PSP routinely provides resources and personnel to assist. As a matter of protocol, the Secret Service advises the state police that an event is anticipated, followed by a joint meeting and site visits. On Friday, July 5th, the Secret Service notified PSP that the former President Trump would take place, or a rally would take place in Butler. On Monday, July 8th, I and other commanders from PSP attended the initial planning meeting with various law enforcement agencies. I visited the site multiple times and completed the PSP operation plan leading up to July 13th. The Pennsylvania State Police provided all resources requested by the Secret Service. The Secret Service did not ask me, as the officer in charge of PSP assets, to post a trooper at the AGR International property, nor am I aware that Secret Service making that request to any other PSP official. 30 members of the state police were assigned to various roles to support the Secret Service. These members provided escort for the motorcade route, staffed post within the secured perimeter, performed roving patrols, and staffed the Secret Service command post. PSP was not responsible for securing the building or property at AGR International. The Secret Service established and managed the primary command post for communication. In the office of the Butler Farm Show, a PSP sergeant under my supervision was stationed in the Secret Service command post to relay information or any communication made by PSP personnel to our local and federal partners. I thank you for this opportunity to provide information about the actions of the state police in planning, staffing, responding to the tragic events at the July 13th rally, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Lieutenant Harold. I now recognize Mr. Sullivan for his 5-minute opening remarks. Mr. Sullivan.
Chairman Kelly and Ranking Member Crow and distinguished members of the task force, I am Patrick Sullivan, retired Secret Service agent with 23 years of service. I am honored to appear before you today. I'm a life member of the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the Fraternal Order of Police. I'm also a board member of the United States Secret Service Association. I'm speaking for myself this morning as a subject matter expert. The information that has come to light so far regarding the security failures in Butler is shocking and infuriating. However, I am very, very proud of the bravery of the agents who put themselves in harm's way to save former President Trump and the skill of the counter sniper that neutralized the incoming gunfire with one shot. I served as a Secret Service agent in many investigative, protective, and supervisory assignments. Make no mistake, the Secret Service cannot function without the assistance of its state and local law enforcement partners. I truly believe the men and women of the Secret Service have the most difficult and unforgiving job in law enforcement. It is a zero-fail mission. I have the utmost respect for those agents, uniform division officers, and staff who are currently facing the challenges. For a presidential visit, the Secret Service must provide 360-degree coverage to include the sky above and the ground below. The Secret Service establishes an inner, middle, and outer perimeter. I will now discuss a typical Secret Service advance for a presidential visit in the United States. Prior to July 13th, what follows was only provided for the president. It's my understanding that these advance procedures are now being used to protect President Biden, Vice President Harris, as well as former President Trump. The President's staff informs the Secret Service about the date and location and itinerary for a trip. The protective detail then notifies headquarters and the Secret Service field office where the visit will occur. The field office then notifies the relevant state and local law enforcement agencies and schedules a police meeting. It is at the police meeting that the state and local law enforcement agencies meet the Secret Service advance team and learn about the trip. Counterparts for the Secret Service advance team and local police are identified. The Secret Service advance team usually consists of the following: a lead advance, site advance, airport, motorcade, protective intelligence, counter assault team, counter sniper team, magnetometer, counter surveillance unit, and technical advance components to include unmanned aerial surveillance. After the counterparts are identified, the police and Secret Service work together on their assignments to develop a security plan for their site. They will jointly determine the assets needed to secure the site. The Secret Service personnel doing the CAT and counter sniper advance will also work closely with the local police SWAT personnel to craft a tactical response plan. The protective intelligence, or PI advance, works with the local police and other federal agencies to investigate any threats or threat-related information. The site agent, in consultation with the lead advance agent, reviews the site security plan and presents it to the field office supervisor and protective detail supervisor for concurrence. The lead advance agent is responsible for ensuring all protection activities are coordinated and in sync. This includes ensuring all components communicate and respond appropriately during an emergency. Usually there will be one overall command post for the visit, with each site having a security room, a scaled-down version of a CP. The Secret Service lead and site agents do not have direct command or control of the state and local police officers. Off-the-record sites are handled differently than most on-the-record movements. The Secret Service does not know the president intends to visit a location until shortly before. The Secret Service will have a site agent conduct a brief advance to ensure that there are no apparent security concerns. Additional security measures are put in place after the president arrives. In closing, I would like to suggest Congress consider expanding the statutory authority of the Secret Service to ensure the agency can make the most informed decisions possible. The United States is facing a hyper-dynamic threat environment, and the Secret Service must be certain it is receiving all relevant threat information. The failure of most Secret Service personnel in Butler to be informed about the specific threat facing former President Trump stands out. Currently, there is no statutory requirement mandating federal, state, and local agencies must report to the Secret Service information concerning threats against the president or other protectees. There are agreements in place and memorandum of understanding to allow the transfer of such information, but no legal mandate to do so. In my opinion, the law must clearly state such information must be immediately provided to the Secret Service to take whatever steps it deems necessary to conduct an investigation and follow-up. For example, the FBI has exclusive jurisdiction to investigate a conspiracy to assault or kill the president before the attack takes place. Since the Secret Service is responsible for protecting the president, it should be part of all such threat investigations so it can take appropriate steps to prevent an assassination. And finally, the FBI has authority under current law to seek the assistance of any federal, state, or local agency, including the military, to help investigate an assassination or assassination attempt after the fact. I believe the Secret Service should have similar authority to call for such assistance to prevent an assassination or assassination attempt. That concludes my statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I now recognize Dr. Goldsmith for his 5-minute opening remarks. Now, the witness is going to be testifying over the phone, right? Okay. Dr. Goldsmith, please.
Good morning, Chairman Kelly, Ranking Member Crow, and distinguished members of the task force. My name is Dr. Ariel Goldschmidt. I'm the Chief Medical Examiner for Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. On July 13, 2024, after the attempted assassination of former President Trump, I, through my staff, reached out to the Butler County Coroner, Bill Young, to offer our assistance if needed. Later that night, our assistance was accepted by Butler County, and arrangements were made to transport the bodies of Thomas Matthew Crooks and victim Corey Dean Comparator to our office. Our office wasn't involved in the transportation of the decedents. However, once they were transported to our office, the required chain of custody work was processed. The following morning, July 14 at 9:15 a.m., I began Mr. Crooks' autopsy with the assistance of other technicians named in my report. Prior to the autopsy, the body was x-rayed. Major handprints were obtained by the FBI Major Incident Program Manager, Brian Johnson, and gunshot residue test samples were collected by autopsy technician Lauren Moran. My involvement in the case was limited to the autopsy, in which I determined that Thomas Crooks died as a result of a high-velocity gunshot wound to the head with an entrance wound of the left upper lip. I had no reports from or involvement in the investigation into Mr. Crooks' motives or actions, crime scene evidence, or other outside evidence as part of my work. Items of evidentiary value collected during the autopsy were transferred to the custody of the FBI. Once I received the results of toxicology testing, which was performed by our laboratory, I completed a written autopsy report, which was signed August 5th and delivered to Butler County. Our office's involvement in the case concluded on July 22nd, 2024, when Mr. Crooks' body was released to a funeral home pursuant to the directives of the Butler County coroner.
Thank you, Doctor. Now we're going to move to member questions under the 5-minute rule, and I'm going to recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions. First, we're going to show a video to get things started. The footage you are about to see is from this dash cam of a Pennsylvania State Police patrol car on July 13th. This footage has never been released to the public, and it has been edited to show relevant parts. The video, as you will see from the timestamp in the upper right-hand corner, begins at 18:08 or 8 minutes after 6 p.m. In the first 12 seconds of the video, you will see a figure circled in red crossing the roofs of multiple AGR buildings. This man is Thomas Crooks. You will then see the patrol car begin moving toward the AGR buildings, and we lose sight of Crooks, but about 19 seconds into the video, he reappears. Again, we have circled him in red before we lose sight of him at about 20 seconds later. Now, we cut the video for length, so it picks up at about a minute and a half later at 6:10 p.m. and 38 seconds. Here you will see law enforcement around the AGR building. At this point, all law enforcement entities staffing the rally are aware that there is an individual on the roof of AGR, but they do not know he is armed. Behind the trees, you will see one officer attempting to lift another officer up onto the roof, and you will see that officer pull himself up and look to the left. According to that officer's interview with the task force, he sees Crooks with the long gun, and Crooks turns and points the weapon in his direction. The officer then falls to the ground, injuring his ankle, and radios that the man on the roof is armed at 11 minutes after 6. That portion of the video ends here. We know that the first shot from Crooks is fired just 32 seconds later. We will play the video now. This will take about 51 seconds. There's no audio. Where do we see Crooks from?
Yeah.
Yeah. I realize it's hard to see some of this, but so Crooks, as he makes his way across the roof, this is, by the way, a Pennsylvania State Police cruiser, and it has the dash cam. So you're able to see some things that nobody else was able to see, but I know it's difficult. Lieutenant Harold, I'm going to direct the first line of questioning to you, since this is state police footage. Footage and evidence show that Crooks was on the roof of the AGR building for over 3 minutes before shots were fired. Lieutenant Harold, please describe those few minutes leading up to the shots fired from your vantage point.
My position when the shots were fired, I was behind the stage. I can't answer to any questions regarding Mr. Crooks on the roof because I did not have that information. I was behind the stage. It was very loud, and if it was transmitted over our portables, I did not hear that. But I had returned to my car briefly once the former president had taken the stage to retrieve a cell phone that had FirstNet, and then I was returning back to the stage when the first shot rang out.
Officer Blasco, same question.
At that time, I was at Brady Paul, and I was working my way over to the AGR building to assist other Butler Township units with looking for crooks. As I got to the water tower, I parked underneath the water tower and began to make my way to AGR. That's when the shots rang out.
Thank you. Commander Lenz, you were reportedly the first person to call out shots fired over the radio. Were you aware that someone was on the roof or that he was armed prior to the shots being fired? Also, please describe those few minutes leading up to shots fired from your vantage point.
For the first two questions, yes, I was aware through radio traffic that there was somebody on the roof and also that he was armed. The first report that there was somebody on the roof came on a different radio channel than the tactical units were operating, which would be PD Ops 3. And that transmission at 18:08 and 20 seconds is somebody's on the roof. At 18:09, I made a phone call to the PSP sergeant in the Secret Service Command Center and relayed the information that there was a suspect on the roof of the AGR building. There was some additional radio traffic from the Butler Township police units. And at 18:11:03 hours on that PD Ops 3 channel, again, not the channel the tactical units were operating, is the Butler Township unit that reports he is armed. I believe he says, I see him, he's laying down, and he has a long gun. So my actions for that, at that point, the gentleman on the roof clearly is a threat, and I radioed to our quick reaction force to deploy them to the AGR complex to begin to address that threat. Prior to me finishing that radio transmission, you can hear the shots being fired through my open microphone.
Okay. You know, I have a problem going back to the actual sighting of Mr. Crooks more than once and way before 11 minutes after 6. I think that one of the things is the panel has heard from different people at different times is of the thousands of people that were on the grounds that day, there is repeatedly one person that keeps standing out in the back and forth, all the different communication. And it is, in fact, Thomas Crooks that they're talking about. So we knew there was somebody that was very suspicious. We also knew there was somebody that we weren't able to actually come in contact with, and we kept losing contact with him. We saw him with a rangefinder. We saw him doing things that were not probably in line with what people go to a rally for. And I think that I'm constantly going to be wondering at what point did somebody say, we're not sure the area is secure and safe? There's enough understanding before that. The way you all responded, I think, was incredible. I want to thank you for that, but I still can't understand of all the different people that were on the grounds that day, thousands of people, there's only one consistent person that they identify, and it is ultimately the shooter. So I don't believe the grounds were safe and secure that day. I'm just trying to understand is what it was or what it would have taken for somebody to say, keep Mr. Trump inside until we clear this up. Now, Commander Lenz, because you and I have had not just minutes, but hours together, and a couple of days we'll be gone a deep dive to what happened. Do you feel that the Secret Service adequately prepared you and your men for July 13th?
I believe I can answer the tasks that they had given us, which would be to provide 2 counter-assault teams, 2 sniper teams, and a quick reaction force. We were certainly prepared for the missions that they had given us. There were additional things, obviously, that probably needed covered. but they never asked us to do that. They never tasked us with that. So given what they specifically asked us to do, we were certainly prepared to do that.
Okay, so you did what they asked you to do. But looking back at it now, the question is, did they clearly identify what it is that they expected of you or what you could have been responsible for? Mr. Blasco, same question.
So I took my direction from Commander Lenz, and of the things that we were asked to do from my direction from Commander Lenz for the pre-planning stages for the sniper teams, I would feel that I did what was requested of me from Commander Lenz.
Okay, so hindsight's always 20/20. Looking back on that, do you think you were adequately prepared for what it is that ultimately happened?
There's always things that you think that you can do better, but with the information that we had, I believe that we did the very best that we can, or we could.
Lieutenant Harold, you feel the Secret Service adequately prepared you and your men for the event?
The Secret Service, after meeting with them at the site and going through what they requested PSP to do, was primarily the security of the farm show inside the fence line. So adequate troopers, I had 30 troopers inside that fence line once the motorcade arrived. And I feel that with them being the lead and we were in a request assist function, we provided what they asked for and we secured the inner perimeter of the farm show grounds.
Yeah, I think with local law enforcement, I think you did everything that you were tasked to do that day. But looking back and looking at the game films and say, you know what, there probably were other things we should have been clued in on that. Just ask all of you, when did you first meet with Secret Service and understand what your role was going to be that day? Looking at July 13th and working backwards from that Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, when did we get together to find out what we should do that day?
So for Butler ESU, our first contact from the Secret Service was Friday, July 5th at 1:55, and that was a phone call asking for assistance with the upcoming Butler rally. We then had a police planning meeting. It was on July 8th, 2024 in Allegheny County. And during that meeting is where they relayed the information specific to their request. And at that point for Butler ESU, that was 2 counter assault teams and a quick reaction force.
Commander, tell me, where did that meeting take place?
I believe it was the Allegheny County Emergency Operations Center. I could not be there that day. I was actually teaching an active shooter class in Erie, and one of our deputy commanders went to that meeting.
Okay. Mr. Blasco. Yeah.
So again, we took, from that meeting, we took direction from Commander Lenz and the deputy commanders and team leaders, and we started to formulate a plan of what to do. But the first interaction that I personally had with the Secret Service would have been the July 11th walkthrough at the farm show grounds.
Actually on the site?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was my question. I know that you were in Allegheny County when they're getting ready for this, but who actually walked the site, saw what it was that needed to be done, and had determined a lot of things, including where the perimeter should be? I would think that would be I would supposedly that there would be a lot of coordination between the local law enforcement, the Secret Service, and Homeland Security, who visited that day, to prepare for that event. I want to thank you all for being here today in your testimony. I'm now going to have Mr. Crow has his turn.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Sullivan, I wanted to start with you for a moment. I served in the Army before coming to Congress, and one of the principles of operations, as Mr. Blasco, I'm sure, is familiar, is you have to have unity of command and you have to have effective communications. Without unity of command and effective communications, a unit cannot operate. So one of the things I'm struggling with is this idea that there wasn't a single unified command station on site The Secret Service did not establish that. Is that atypical in your experience? Would there normally be one command and control station to unify command and communications?
Yes, that's very atypical. I am very surprised. Normally, there will be an overall command post for the entire visit. Then each site will have what's called a security room, where radio traffic pertinent to that individual site is controlled. And the command post, the overall command post, should be the state, local police, Secret Service, and other federal partners that may be assisting. So this is very unusual, that the way it turned out here at this site.
Do you have any sense in this instance as to why that might occur? Are there instances where when you're conducting an event, you would do multiple command posts, or can you not see why that would be the case?
Well, it's a misnomer, Congressman. The multiple command posts, the Secret Service always has security rooms at individual sites, and they may be termed a command post, but it's really a mini command post. There should be just one overall command post, and each site has their own kind of communication center where information relative to that site will be transmitted. For example, the airport agents or security there really are not concerned what's happening at the other sites because they're only concerned about the airport. So there'd be a security room just for the airport site.
It's probably safe to say that, time and speed is really important, right? Because the idea behind that, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but the idea behind that is if there's something identified as being wrong, a suspicious person, that has to be very quickly communicated, right?
Yeah, this is how it should happen. The protective detail is on one specific frequency, Secret Service frequency, and only the protective details on that frequency. The post standers are on a second frequency, and the tactical teams are on a third frequency, but the other tactical teams monitor all three frequencies at the same time. So if something happens, it's at the security room's responsibility to immediately get on the radio on the details frequency and say, there's an issue, remove the protectee from the stage or cover and evacuate. That's what's supposed to happen. And that's what's drilled into every Secret Service agent. There has to be, because the detail agents, don't forget, they can't listen to all the other traffic. They have to be rock solid on protecting the president or the presidential candidate. So their frequency is just for their individual movements.
So in this instance, based upon what you know and what you heard from Commander Lentz and Mr. Blasco, a suspicious person was identified with a rangefinder. Pictures were taken of this person moving around a building, so much so that it drew the attention of one of the sniper teams who took pictures of it. If that information had been effectively communicated to the FBI, or if the FBI, I guess to rephrase that, had set up a communication system in a command post to receive that information, would that have been a situation where you would say the protectee shouldn't go on stage until we resolve this?
Congressman Crowe, you mean the Secret Service, not FBI?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Secret Service, right.
Yes, sir. What should have happened, in my opinion, is when the suspicious person was identified, the detail leader and the shift agent should have been told there's an issue, we're working a suspicious person. And then at that point, it was probably would be inappropriate to remove the president from the stage, but the detail leader should know there's an issue, I may have to react quicker. So at a minimum, when there's a suspicious person, the detail leader and the shift agent should be told there's an issue.
And in your experience, have there been situations when you've been on service as a Secret Service agent where that has come up, where you've had to, pause an event or respond to something until it's been addressed?
Yes, that has happened during my career. I've never had a dramatic situation where we had to remove the president from the stage, but we've had situations where the shift agents are told, we got a situation, there's a suspicious person in the front row. And then you have to mitigate that. Usually the protective intelligence team will then come, take that person and conduct an interview, remove that person from the rope line, as an example, and you don't have to take the president off stage or interrupt the president's movements.
I want to turn briefly to the effective deployment of snipers. So Acting Director Rowe explained to this task force that it is best practice for the Secret Service to position counter snipers from the vantage point of the protectee looking out. And in fact, in this situation, that is where the Secret Service sniper teams were. They were sitting above the platform looking out. The employment of the local law enforcement, the Butler County ESU sniper teams, was outside looking in. So not looking at rooftops, not looking at lines of sight or lines of fire, but their mission, as they were told, was to look at the crowd and a crowd of several thousand people and to try to identify issues within the crowd. Is that atypical?
I don't know, Mr. Crow, if that's atypical. I'm very familiar with the counter sniper, our counter sniper operation, Secret Service, and that they do set up their position for a line of sight to the stage, show a potential assassin, what type of shot can a potential assassin make against the president, and counteract that. Generally speaking, the observation of the crowd is the responsibility of the post standers or police officers that are posted in the crowd. Because the theory being, everyone in that crowd has already been screened. So it would be very difficult for someone to get a weapon inside the secure area already.
So the idea that there would be, a gunman, not to say that it's not impossible, but there would be a gunman in the crowd, that a sniper at a distance would be able to identify and take an effective shot seems very unlikely.
It seems highly unlikely, in my opinion. Again, the threat at that point, from the counter sniper perspective, is outside the perimeter, in the area that is outside where the magnetometers are set up. And that's the reason why you have the counter snipers. Because the theory being, inside that perimeter, the people have already been screened, and to a high degree of certainty, there is probably no weapons inside the secure area.
Thank you. Commander Lenz and Mr. Blasco, did that mission seem unusual to you, that you were outside looking in at a screened crowd?
It did not. We didn't receive any direction from the Secret Service as far as how they wanted our sniper teams to deploy or what their actual mission would be. So our snipers on our normal missions, they deploy more as marksman observers. So
What was, what was your mission as you understood it that day?
as we understood it, it was to deploy sniper teams to overwatch the stage, the crowd, the venue area where most of the people would be gathering.
Mr. Goldschmidt, are you still with us?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Just one brief question for you. Was the autopsy that you performed, was that, in this case, was that a standard autopsy in your view? And what I mean by that, was there anything that stood out to you as unusual or different? Was there anything in the toxicology that stood out to you as unusual or different, or did it all appear to be a standard autopsy?
It was a standard autopsy. The only thing that we different was we did a little bit of extra toxicology testing with a heavy metal screening with a slightly elevated lead level. But other than that, the fact that there were FBI members and Pennsylvania State Police members present, it was a standard autopsy.
And pictures were taken during this. It was documented. So, any markings on the body, tattoos on the body, that would all be evident from your report?
Correct.
And so slightly escalated lead levels, but nothing else that stood out.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Thank you. Now I'm going to recognize Representative Joyce from Ohio for 5 minutes. Mr. Joyce.
Thank you very much, Chairman Kelly. Lieutenant Harold, a lot of discussion I think will take place today about the advanced planning that took place. And my understanding is that from your testimony here was that you were involved in most of those day-to-day meetings leading up to this event and at the event with the Secret Service. Is that correct?
Sir, yes, sir.
And so could you go through that? Like, on what was the first day you met with them, and then what did you discuss? And did the Secret Service, to your understanding, when they come in and take over a site, they're in charge of the site, and then they're helping, you are assisting them, and they're telling you, you tell them where people are going to be, the local folks who they're going to be, and they're basically in charge and know all those things ahead of time, where everyone's supposed to be, correct?
That's correct.
Did you have the opportunity then to understand that when the Secret Service came in, that they were telling the local folks, this counter sniper group, and I believe Mr. Blasco, that it was at the end of the day, it was the Beaver County sniper team that was in the HR building?
It was both Beaver and Butler, sir.
Okay. Did Secret Service ever talk to the Beaver County sniper unit?
Not to my knowledge.
And they were there that day in charge of this operation. Secret Service never talked to them.
Correct.
Thank you. So going back to you, Lieutenant Harold, the day of or day before the event, do you have a walkthrough with the Secret Service?
I had 2 walkthroughs at the site. There was a walkthrough on Tuesday. It was just a brief to get familiar with the property. We went back to the barracks. We pulled up an image of the farm show on a smart screen TV. We drew the fence line, spoke a little bit. The main meeting at the site was Thursday, and it was with the same 3 Secret Service agents. I was with 2 other PSP commanders. We walked the site starting at the main gate. We went clockwise around and looking at my ops plan, wherever there's a dot or a number, that was a stationary patrol. And then basically when we got near the end and I had everything that they had requested, I was informed by my Area 1 commander that if we needed additional troopers, that we could pull from surrounding troops. But after the request and the assignments that was given to us from Secret Service, I had plenty. I covered all the posts, and I had additional roving troopers inside the venue. So that was primarily the main meeting that we had with Secret Service was on Thursday, and then I completed the ops plan and had it forwarded out by 1500 hours on Friday.
So that was 2 days before the event. No walkthrough the day of, no walkthrough the day before.
There was no walkthrough. I spent a little bit of time there Friday evening. There was an incident with between Secret Service and the campaign. I was on my way home. I live across the street from the farm show, so I stopped there to see what the issue was. I ended up staying there until about 8:30 p.m. that night. So I did have some other interactions with Secret Service there on Friday, and then even some early communication with the campaign and Secret Service the morning of and during the event on July 13th.
What was the issue?
The issue was there was a campaign. We didn't know who it was at first. There was a vehicle that was parked, and one of the Secret Service agents had approached this person, and I think the individual was rude to the Secret Service agent and then got out of the car and walked away. So I had a trooper there go up to the PA system, page the registered owner of the vehicle, and I gave them so many minutes to return to their vehicle where I was going to tow it.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Sullivan, were you ever personally on a presidential protection detail?
Yes, sir, for 4 years.
Okay, when was that?
It was 2 years with President Reagan and 2 years with First President Bush.
Oh, God bless. What kind of training did somebody on a PPD have?
We had extensive training. We came through the normal Secret Service training, Federal Enforcement Training Center, the Secret Service Training Center in Beltsville, Maryland. Then before you got to the presidential detail, you had to do a series of field office assignments, investigations, and protection assignments, assisting on advances. And then when you got to the Presidential Protection Division, you had to have a minimum of 6 or 7 years experience, which is what I had when I got there. And then once you're there, we had training at least once a month. We had to shoot our firearms once a month, and we went to Beltsville, the Riley Training Center, at least once a month for, we call them attack on principles, AOPs, where you go through routine and events that might happen. Then all of a sudden you'd have an attack on the person who was acting as the president to test your response skills. So it's very, very intense training.
I appreciate that, sir. Our acting director Rowe has said that we need a paradigm shift, and we need to be changed from one of being reactive to one of readiness. Now, what does that even mean?
Well, I think it means that the Secret Service needs to shift how we do business, but I'll harken back to my testimony. To me,
Like shift, from back to all the work that was done to prepare you for President Reagan and President Bush to the lack of that work being done now?
no, sir, that's not what I mean. I think there's a certain, I don't know what words actually come to mind, but agents are exhausted now. The campaign really, really takes a lot out of them. And I think they don't have enough resources, Secret Service does not have enough personnel and resources to give people the breaks that they need. But also, let me say though, Congressman, When we say about the paradigm shift and going from a reactive mode to a readiness mode, it's really being proactive. And I'll harken back to my testimony. We
So when
need,
would you not be proactive when you're, and when you go out into a situation like that? You're always looking for points of attack, correct?
yes, from the physical protection aspect, but I'm talking the overall agency.
I'm talking about the physical protection. When you were in PPD, when you were out there on the field, if you saw somebody in the line of sight or the day before in a walkthrough and you saw problems with line of sight, what would you do?
I would have had those mitigated, or else I would have talked to the supervisor and said, it's not safe for the president to come.
Correct. How would you mitigate it?
You
Didn't you
could
have
have, you could
banners
have
at that time?
banners, you could have buses, you could have trucks. There are a lot of ways to mitigate it. But however, to me, the simplest way to mitigate the building there outside the fence line in Butler was to post it. If you had police officers on the outside of the building, or agents, no one could have got up to the roof.
My understanding is that there was some type of vehicle that was supposed to be posted there to block that line of sight. When you came out and you were in charge and you didn't see the vehicle there, you still let the president come out?
Well, I didn't do the advance, and I don't want to
I
second
know,
guess the
I know,
people
but I'm
there.
asking you, since you're here on their behalf, I'm asking, you
Mr.
would
Joyce,
have let the person come out?
Mr. Joyce, I would have taken the steps necessary. If I thought there was still a gap in the security posture, I would have taken the steps necessary, or I would have told the supervisors, it's not safe to bring the president here. That's what I would have done.
Mr. Joyce.
Thank you
your
very
time's
much. I
expired.
know I
Thank you.
exceeded my time.
I wish we had a lot more time to do this. I mean it because I think you're onto something that we really need to know.
I'm
Mr.
not a
Correa, you are
chairman, so I
now
don't get
recognized
extra
for
time.
5 minutes.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to welcome our witnesses today. You're all real-life heroes, and you acted with bravery on July 13th, and for that, I thank you on behalf of the American public. I'm also grateful that former President Trump was not seriously injured, but several families were. Their lives have been changed, and for them, I have nothing but my deepest sympathies. Mr. Sullivan, I want to turn to you first. I have a Wall Street Journal article from yesterday, and I'm going to submit this for the record, Mr. Chairman.
Objections.
And quickly summarizing some of the statements were made. Unclear chain of command, technical issues, poor communication, couldn't identify who within Secret Service was final decision maker. No communication in real time. 2 communication centers. Secret Service said they had technical issues with the radios, a problem that was characterized as being common with the agency. This is a summary of the Senate findings. And Mr. Sullivan, I just want to ask you a very brief question, which is, who's in charge at these sites?
It is crystal clear in my mind from when I was an agent. The site agent, the site advance agent, crafts his or her plan, presents it to the lead advance agent. Ultimately, the lead advance agent is personally responsible for signing off on the entire advance package, all the sites, airport motorcades.
So I'm going to ask you, you have at least three different elements here, 3 different groups that we're talking about here. We're talking about the Secret Service, local police, and the campaign.
Yes.
So the Secret Service is in charge
Secret Service is in
of
charge
all the above.
of security. No, not all the above, not the campaign, Mr. Carrera. It's only charge of the security portion.
And I say that to you because some of the testimony here today, first of all, we don't have communication was totally lacking here. You mentioned there was a, 1 command center is generally the situation. Here you had 2 command centers that didn't talk to each other. You had someone in the roof spotted, 1609, call was made, suspect on roof with possible weapon. 1811, local police officer spots crooks, jumps off the roof, injures himself. 32 seconds later, you have a shot, goes off. Real time. You've been with the Secret Service, sir. You with President Reagan, I believe you said.
And President Bush, yes, sir.
Thank you for that good work. What went wrong? Who's in charge? And I'm not trying to say focus on you, but rather we have former President Trump going back to Butler here in the next few days. You know, I'm not looking for people that are guilty here. I'm looking for solutions. What went wrong? How can we fix that moving forward?
Well, what went wrong here is there was a breakdown, and I'll explain one more time, Mr. Carrera. The site agent reports to the lead agent. The lead agent is responsible. He or she is responsible for the entire advance package, and then that's presented to the field office supervisor and the detail supervisor.
Are we being lax here? Because Secret Service is an elite group of Americans, done an excellent job of protecting our presidents. And here today, you described to me, you know, who's in charge, at least for the locals and Secret Service and not the campaign. But is there somebody there who has the authority to say, this doesn't look good, pull the candidate off the stage, this situation is beyond my control, or it doesn't look good, cancel this thing, move to a safer ground? Is there somebody there that has the authority to tell all three elements, this is not good, let's move on?
Yes, the site agent and the lead agent, before the protectee gets there, could call ahead and say, it's not safe, do not let the protectee arrive. Absolutely. Once the protectee's there, if there's an issue, any agent, you don't have to be the detail leader, any agent can
I'm
go up.
running out of time, so very quickly, my last question would be, did that person in charge also review all of the communication and say, this is not working?
Yes, that was the lead
Pull the
agent's
plug.
responsibility. The lead agent,
And so there was a failure there by the lead agent.
well, I don't want to specifically say the lead agent, but
In
in my
your-
opinion, it was probably the lead agent's responsibility to ensure the overall communication for the entire visit was appropriate.
And that was not the case.
Apparently not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Correa. Now recognize Representative Walz, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think I share everyone's condolences for the Compatore family, for the Copenhaver family, for the Dutch family that are dead and suffering because of these failures. And thank you all for your service. Every day you wake up and put that badge on to keep us safe. We appreciate you and we have your back. And I just want to let you know, as a veteran, when we come home, we depend on all of you, and I just can't thank you enough. Commander Lenz, Lieutenant Harrell, I want to take a step back again, back to the planning. And really the threat profile that President Trump is facing that is unprecedented in modern American history. Commander Lenz, Lieutenant Harrell, were you made aware that Iran has ongoing assassination plots against President Trump that are active and ongoing right now as we speak, including to the run-up?
No.
To July 13th?
I am not aware.
Was it ever discussed with you that an Iranian operative has transited Venezuela and was in the United States, according to FBI public notice made in March, recruiting hitmen to kill President Trump?
It was not.
Were you made aware on July 13th or on July 12th that day the FBI had arrested a Pakistani national, Mr. Merchan, with ties to Iran, putting down payments, actual cash, down payments to recruit hitmen?
No.
Were you aware that that same operative were recruiting women as spotters and recruiting protesters as a distraction? A fairly sophisticated plot being run by a foreign state actor intelligence agency.
No.
Not aware.
Mr. Sullivan, in your experience, would that change how you operated? Would that heighten your level of coordination, assets?
Absolutely, Mr. Waltz. It would be a tremendous game changer. But again, I harken back to my statement here at the beginning. The current situation with the Secret Service not being mandated to have information provided to it is a problem. Now, the Secret Service should have been part of that overall investigation. The Secret Service should have been part
Secret
of the
Service
arrest.
should have been aware.
Absolutely.
And
They've been probably
certainly,
where they
had you been in charge, or in your experience, would certainly make local law enforcement aware, hey, we not only have ongoing plots, we just arrested someone in the United States putting down payments to kill President Trump. This is on top of the ongoing domestic threats, correct?
Yes.
You would
yes.
make your counterparts aware.
Yes, I would think those Secret Service headquarters knew about that. I'm assuming that. I don't know for a fact. But I've been in law enforcement my whole life. Unless you're in the room, unless you're one of the persons putting handcuffs on the suspect and bringing him in the room conducting the interview, you're never going to get the whole story. You have to be
But at
part
least
of
in
that
awareness,
arrest.
in fairness, just I have limited time, at least in awareness to your local law,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So were you also aware, was anyone aware that President Trump had been denied additional resources, but the reason the Secret Service counter sniper team wasn't there to coordinate with you is they were still pending approval at Secret Service headquarters. That's why the actual counter snipers weren't there to coordinate with you. Is anyone aware of that?
I was
But
not.
that they would be coming, maybe you should sync up? Coordinate?
There was some discussion there. Like, I think it was on Thursday that, because when you compare this to the 2020 rally, the Secret Service did not have a lot of the resources that was in Butler for 2020. And this event on July 13th, they seemed like they had a lot less resources. There was no CAT team. I don't think the CS team was coming at first. And,
That's right.
and early on, we had mentioned our CERT team, which is Special Emergency Response Team, utilizing them, but they felt that they were just needed in the motorcade.
So it was clear, heightened threat, you're not made aware, a lot less resources from the service. In addition, in terms of Secret Service post standards, 12 were allocated to Dr. Jill Biden's event in Pittsburgh, only 3 allocated there, making them highly dependent on you all. And in my time remaining, Commander Lentz, you said you were not given any guidance to secure the AGR building. Can you just talk about that for a moment? So essentially the site and the advance said, locals, you guys got this. Good. And was there any back brief? Was there any put assets here, on the roof, inside, post standards, anything at all?
So once we received our duties, so the Secret Service says, here's what we want you to do. And on Tuesday, I believe it was Tuesday, they did request some sniper teams from us. And later that day confirmed that their counter snipers were coming in. But there was no guidance as far as where they wanted us to be, aside from what those specific duties would be. The counter assault team leader was very good at making sure we knew what was expected. The counter sniper walked through with us at the planning meeting. So they knew where we would be. They knew what our plan was. They never requested a formal copy of our plan.
This was all verbal,
Correct.
right? And you never got any written guidance of how many assets to put where.
Correct. And it was our decision to place those snipers in the second floor of that AGR building. They were aware of that, certainly aware that they would be there, but there was no feedback or guidance that they wanted them there, that they didn't want them there. But really by not raising an objection.
Mr. Sullivan, should that guidance have been provided? in your
Absolutely,
experience?
absolutely. No question about it.
And if you had had additional Secret Service assets, would you have put the AGR building within the protective perimeter and the see-through chain link fence that anybody could have approached within yards of the stage? Would you have put that inside the perimeter with additional resources?
With additional resources, you could probably put that building inside the perimeter, but from my understanding, that with the resources they had, the decision was made to put that building outside the perimeter, but it still could have been secured with post standards to prevent someone from getting on the roof.
So this was a lack of resources decision from Secret Service headquaters. If they had had it, you would have done it differently.
No, Mr. Walsh, I don't want to say that. I wasn't there, but if the Secret Service had the resources, it would have been easier probably putting that within the secure perimeter, and then everyone going into the building would have already been magged and screened. But I mean, you have to take that on a case-by-case basis.